Okay, friends, before we get started today, I want to give a shout out to Graham Tobias. Thank you, sir, for being a new supporter on our Patreon page. Folks, you can help the show too by heading over to patreon.com/Roadie Free Radio. And for as low as $1 a month, you can help keep this show rocking and rolling week after week.
What's happening, Roadies? This is Jay Blakesberg.
This is Danny Segowitz.
Hey, what's happening, Roadies? This is Erich Miller, and you're listening to Roadie Free Radio.
What's up, Roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. All right, Roadies, welcome back for another week, another phenomenal story, another good time right here. This is Roadie Free Radio. This is your host, Larry Milburn, and check it out. You are listening to episode 125. My guest today is Mr. Erich Miller, front of house, I say, for Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, the funk machine that has taken over the jam scene. Thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate it. I can't believe we're at episode 125. It's crazy. 150's coming up this summer. I think it's like August 26th as of right now. If I don't screw around, jerk around with the dates and the times and the numbers, August is looking like 150, which is just incredible. But I can't even believe we're at 125, man. We're flying. Time's flying. Almost 3 years doing the show. May, I believe, is the 3-year anniversary. So we got some stuff to look forward to. Like I said, today's guest, Erich Miller from South Philly, representing South Philly, pushing the faders, as they say, for Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. We have a good chat. So right off the bat, I'd like to welcome any new people that have stopped by. If you're a member of the flock, the Pigeons fan page, fan group, I want to thank you and welcome you to Roadie Free Radio. We break down the stories of the people behind the scenes of the music industry with a particular focus on the live touring professional. So we got some good stories here, some inspiring tales, and some educational tidbits. I hope you're happy to be here. I think you're going to dig today's interview. And for those of you that have been around for 125 episodes, you're goddamn crazy. Thank you. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for supporting the show. As I mentioned, we picked up a new supporter over on Patreon. At the top of the show, Graham Tobias. I'm very excited. Things are moving, and every little bit helps, right? I think literally we make $21 a month on Patreon. But here's how I look at that. That is my Dropbox subscription for the month. Okay, costs $20. I'm making 21. I'm coming out on top. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Check out a channel if you have not done so already called Polyphonic. This guy is awesome. I was just turned on to this channel a couple days ago. I finally had a chance to head over, have a look. He does basically video essays, short video essays on pop culture and particularly music topics. Really, really cool stuff. And they're like little mini documentaries about cool things. Why was John Bonham such a great drummer? Why was Billie Jean, Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, such a big hit? And he kind of breaks down the song and the album and all this kind of stuff. So Polyphonic, check that out. Those of you also taking score, I did not make it to the JJ Gray and Big Head Todd show at the Capitol Friday night. Just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the connect. I wanted to do an interview. It didn't come to fruition. And a lot of personal and family stuff just happening. Just didn't have time. So I did not make it there. But that's okay, because I got a lot of other fantastic shows coming up that I want to let you know about, because maybe you're going to them as well. First off, the Northeast Guitar Expo, April 7th at the Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, Connecticut. I'm going to be there. I'm going to bring my 4-year-old son. He's almost 4. He's close enough to 4. I'm bringing him. He's going to start learning about guitars so he can start stringing some of mine. Northeast Guitar Expo, April 7th, Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, Connecticut. Then we got the Indigo Girls coming to the Warner Theater right here in my backyard in Torrington, Connecticut, March 23rd. Yeah, I'm going to go see the Indigo Girls. I've seen them a couple of times. Great stuff. That was my zone, right? Early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, Closer to Fine. Just had a big anniversary. So I'm going. I'm also going to go see them because Brian Spicer, who's been a guest on the show, is doing the front of house. And he is also the front of house for Tedeschi Trucks. If you are a fan of Tedeschi Trucks and you want to learn about their front of house guy, check out the episode with Brian Spicer. So he'll be there. I'm heading over to the Capitol Theater on March 14th for Phil Lesh's birthday so that I can also hook up with Brian Rashup from last week. And then March 30th, I'm hoping to get over to Mohegan Sun. Ready for this curveball? Ariana Grande. Going to go see her so I can hook up with Jason Zito, a past guest as well. So that's what's going on the calendar so far. Hopefully I'm going to get a hall pass for all of those things from the wife. We will see. We like to keep it positive around here and hope that we can make that happen. All right. Next couple things I want to tell you about. Here's a wacky one for you. As many of you know, and if you don't know, I did a short film several years back. Turns out it was 15 years ago that it came out this June. 15 years ago, this June, I released a short film that completely changed my life and ultimately led me on the path to create this podcast. Short film was called Roadie. It was an homage to the film Top Gun, told through the world of roadies for a rock band where I played the Tom Cruise character, and I'm the best of the best roadies, but I got some demons I got to get over before I get that big tour. Anyway, this thing came out, changed my life, and once, I don't know why, it hit me the other day. I started doing the math. I was like, oh my God, it's this year, 15 years. So start looking for some little tidbits about the film and behind the scenes of that, and maybe I'll have some guests on that were part of that production to talk about stuff because, like I said, it changed my life. I'll talk more about that over the next several weeks about why it changed my life and everything, but it did, suffice it to say. Other thing I want to let you guys know, I also did a film about 2 years ago now called Brass, Glass, and Steel, the making of Arlen Roth's Slide Guitar Summit. If you don't know who Arlen is, Arlen, prodigy guitar player way back, and he put together a slide guitar record. I shot and produced the behind the scenes of the making of this record. And on this record are people like Leroy Parnell, Greg Martin, Sonny Landreth, Cindy Cashdollar, Rick Vito, Jack Pearson, and Jimmy Vivino, and of course, Arlen Roth himself. They do some covers, they do some originals, and I drove all around the country and grabbed all the interviews and all the footage of the making of this thing, and had some up and downs with it. Ups and downs. Had some ups and downs with this film, and ultimately, I was not able to release it, but I own the interviews. I can put out the interviews, and I thought, what the hell? I'm sitting on 9 awesome interviews with these folks that we don't just talk about the record. We talk about the slide guitar. We talk about the origins of the slide guitar and where everybody thinks it came from. And I thought, you know what? Why not just put these out? I should put them out. So I'm going to start working on those and getting those ready for you. I haven't quite decided what the best way to deploy them is going to be, whether it will be instead of an interview every Monday, or it will be in addition to. So like, let's say every Wednesday for like 9 weeks, I'll release these things. All right. So that's what I know about that. Keep an eye out for that. Also wanted to let you know we are sponsored today, as usual, by our friends over at Stage Hands Clothing. These guys are based in Chicago. This is a husband and wife team, and they have created the one-stop shop for backstage professionals who are always working hard behind the scenes and count on high-quality, durable workwear. They've got everything from men's and women's apparel and plenty of super cool gear to keep you ready for the next task. If you use the code ROADIE, you will get yourself 20% off your entire order. That's stagehandsclothing.com. Use the code ROADIE to get yourself 20% off your entire order. Okay, today's guest, Erich Miller, current front of house for Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. First, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Jay Blakesberg, the rock and roll photographer, for hooking us up. Thank you, my friend. This was a great chat. Erich is a graduate of the University of Philadelphia with a degree in jazz trumpet performance and a minor in music tech. He currently does live in South Philly, and he decided after school that playing trumpet would not be his path, but he had a passion for being involved in the industry. He learned a bunch about audio. He got a few lucky breaks, and now he is right inside the funk bubble surrounding Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, and he's watching it grow show by show, fan by fan, from the inside looking out. And we talked a lot about that and just what it's like to be on the inside as this snowball of popularity grows. And it's super cool. So I'm very excited to bring you this interview today. They are about to start their next run. They're going to be playing a bunch of summer festivals. You can find out all that stuff by looking in the special mentions section on the website of this particular episode. And before we get to that, I also want to let you know we are sponsored as well by Show Pro Beard Co., which is started by live audio engineer Chris Wilson, who also, by the way, has a YouTube channel called Audio Wizard. Check that out. Chris Wilson, Audio Wizard, over on YouTube. He and his wife have created their very own unique formula of beard balm that not only performs well in terms of health and nourishment, but also provides the control, shine, and pleasant aroma that any bearded professional would appreciate. These are non-waxy, all-natural beard balms that will leave your beard soft, smooth, and nourished. You can choose from a variety of natural smelling scents like Home Sweet Home, Morning Wood, Through the Woods, Chain Motor Oil, and of course, original unscented. Use the code ROADY to get yourself 20% off your entire order. All right, without further delay, let's get to my interview here with Mr. Erich Miller.
Hit it. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie.
Where are you? I thought you were going to be on a bus. You're like in a nice little lounge.
This is actually my living room.
Oh, that's your living room. Are you guys back home now? Oh, you're on a break.
I got home yesterday, and then I leave right after this interview for Vermont.
That's right. That's right. So many interviews, so little time to keep it straight. Absolutely. You know how it is, man. So. Well, that's awesome. So you're going to get a little break. You guys been on the road for how long now?
We just did it was 4 weekends. So I guess 3.5 weeks total.
Okay.
So we started up New York, Capitol Theater, did that show. And then we did some Southeast stuff, and then ended up in Chicago and Michigan this past weekend.
Nice. So just weekends.
Oh, well, I mean, it was all one tour, but it was out. I like to just describe it as weekends because it doesn't sound as long. Right. I say I'm only gone for 4 weekends. It doesn't sound like I'm gone for a month. Right. It's so.
Nice, man. How the show's been going?
Went great. I think we had 14 shows that run. I think we did 12 of 14 sellouts. So yeah, some good ones. Cool. We did Concord Music Hall in Chicago, which was a cool one. Yeah. So that was my first time there. Yeah. That was the first time there. We've done Bottom Lounge and some outdoor stuff in Chicago, but
you're growing.
Yeah, it's been going well.
3 years, a quick rise, huh?
3 years deep. Yeah, for sure.
Admittedly here, I think I told you when we chatted on the phone, I didn't know nothing about Pigeons Playing Ping Pong until Blakesburg said it.
Oh yeah, they're in a very particular scene. I guess the jam scene.
Yeah.
So
but that's that's a world that I kind of came out of back in the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And or late 80s, 90s, and but I just whatever, man. I just hadn't heard of them until Blakesburg mentioned them, and then preparing for this, I started listening. I told you, and it was like, man, I probably played that Spotify playlist 3 or 4 times just to
nice,
bopping around the office,
Very
getting
nice.
familiar with the music. And so my question to you is one of many, but my first question is, I've asked this of other front of house people. And I ask it for some of those folks like, Dave Ratt or Dave Natal, guys who do the Chili Peppers or the Stones, right? Who are, or even, for Pearl Jam, bands that have big anthemic songs and what that's like. Actually, who the hell was it? I think it was Dave Ratt. We were talking about Rage Against the Machine. Uh-huh. With that refrain, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." What it's like to be in the middle of the house mixing a tune like that, surrounded by all these fans or people. And if you're at an outdoor festival, right, hundreds of thousands of people screaming and yelling. So my question for you is, with music like funk that is high energy, happy, celebratory. Celebratory? Is that right? Is that a word? Did I just make that up?
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Is it celebratory? Maybe
celebratory. Thank you. Certainly not celibate. A happy, joyful music. What is that like for you to be standing there, with your hands on the console, feeling it, driving it, helping push it, and push the audience along with it?
Well, it's definitely fun.
Yeah.
So there's no denying that. Yeah, they definitely, they have a couple of those, I guess, anthem-like songs. There's the one that I guess their oldest, best-known song is a song called FUNK. And, everyone just like gets to the chorus. Everybody just like screams along. It's very funny to see, especially as things have been building, going from smaller clubs to bigger venues, and people are learning the music, and it's just like more and more often people are singing along. So it's interesting to kind of hear that progression too.
Sure.
As like people learn the music and then kind of, really get into it. And you get a bigger crowd, the more people yelling, the, more energy that kind of pops into this situation.
Yeah.
So.
And you
nerve-wracking though.
Why? Why nerve-wracking?
Well, I can't mess up that chorus. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like when that guitar lick hits, I got to hit it, or else if everybody can't hear like the main part everybody's trying to sing along with, everyone just looks around all confused. So
right. And then the finger pointing starts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How long had they been around prior to you coming in?
I think they're going on about 10 years. I think the first 2 years it was like the lead guitar player and the lead singer, they were like a duo situation.
Okay.
And then they started a band. So the band's been a band for like 8, and they've been touring hard for about 6 of those. So
wow. So you're relatively new in the organization.
Yeah, I would say when I joined, it was almost all the original members, and the only crew member they had was a lighting guy. And then since then, we've added a merch, a TM, and just this past run, a monitor engineer. So
wow.
Yeah.
So prior to this past run, were you doing both?
I was the TM in front of house for, I guess, 2 of those years. So like about a year ago, we got a TM. And I was always doing monitor duties or making sure the house monitor guy knew what was going on.
Right.
But yeah, we recently just got brought another person on. So kind of have what I would call closer to a full team. So
nice, man.
Not as many double duties.
And still in a van?
We're in this thing called a bandwagon.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen these things. They're almost like a mini tour bus.
Okay.
The one we were just in, it had 9 bunks in it. So every bunk was full. It's like a little RV essentially.
Okay.
But it's that with a trailer behind it. So
nice.
We still have a couple like van weekends where we'll do, like we did the Cap and 2 shows in Asbury the night before that. And then we did a little van run to start that off because it was, 2 hours from Baltimore, 3 hours from Baltimore.
Is that where they're based out of?
Yeah, they're Baltimore based. So
tell me, and this is for musicians that are listening. I just want to backtrack for a second because I think this is an interesting piece because people always say, "Oh man, they're overnight success."
Oh yeah,
but that's not true because you came in close. 3 years ago, but the band was around, if I got my math right, 6 years prior, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't until, or it hasn't been until really this last couple of years that they've really started to break a little bit more. So 9 years, people. Right? If you're out there working on your shit.
Absolutely.
It
seems to about that 10-year mark. If you can deal with the same group of people for 10 years and all work towards the same goal progressively, about 10 years in, it's either going to work or you might want to think about something else. I mean, nothing wrong with continuing regardless of the time, but it's 10 years, like from everyone's stories I've heard, it seems like about that 10-year mark.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I spent some time out in Los Angeles as an actor and whatnot and doing the music thing. And people go out, they move to New York, they move to Nashville, where they're going to move to get out of their spot, right? And they're like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to give it a year in LA. I got to make it in a year. And it's like,
God, it takes a year to find a place to live.
Right? That's what I told people after I'd been there for 10, 12, 15 years. And I would talk to people coming out. I'd be like, first year, you're just trying to figure out where to take a shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe find a job and like figure all that out.
Oh yeah.
It's
You better have a year's worth of rent saved up just in the meantime.
Exactly. So let's just talk about some of we mentioned personnel changes, and you guys finally have a monitor engineer. Tell me about some other challenges or positives, things that have happened in these last couple of years of growth, and what it's like to be on the inside of that snowball as it grows.
I don't know. It's been a lot of everything's just a learning curve. When I started with them, I hadn't done a ton of touring. I mean, I'd definitely done some local stuff, but I'd never, been on the road working like that. They're long days, and especially when I joined, I started TMing, I guess, my version of it. I had never TM'd before. It was just some guy in the band was sending all the advances. So I was just the center of the information for the venue. So, every time we would show up to a venue and there'd be something wrong, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess I should have asked about that. And then add it to the checklist of, things. And, eventually just kind of every time you come across a weird situation, you're like, well, let's figure this out now and let's try not to do that next time. So, and I think everything I've learned to this point has pretty much been along that vein of, man, that was wrong. Let's try this different next time.
Yeah. So. And did you, as you were taking on those TMing responsibilities and things would come up like that, you're like, ah, shit. Did you cross paths with other bands and other TMs where you're like, hey, dude, how do you do this part of it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess the first person that I really toured with that had a solid TM, we did a run with a band called Dopapod. Yeah. And this was maybe 2 or so years ago. And their TM at the time, she taught me an infinite amount of information. It was, it was one of my first runs kind of, with a bigger band and some bigger venues. And, we were the, I guess, co-headlining type situation, but, I was in charge of being the face of the band. And she taught me, a lot about settlements and, kind of how to deal with promoters and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of math that goes into the payout portion of the night. And somehow I ended up with that responsibility as well, just to, kind of take a band member out of that settlement situation and kind of create a buffer. Yeah. So I was then in charge of deciphering contracts and trying to figure out, when venues were taking cuts and how they were doing taxes. And she kind of showed me, how to build spreadsheets the right way to do that info for me. And just like little stuff like that, that's just infinitely valuable.
And to give a little love, what's her name?
Off the top of my head, it's Katie, and I just saw her. She lives in New Orleans now. Man, I'm blanking.
It's all good. Katie, if you're out there, what was the band?
It was Dopapod at the time.
That's right, Dopapod. Katie with Dopapod.
Yeah, she's been with other bands. I think she was with STS9 for a little while, and she's done all sorts of stuff. Cool. I'm probably going to think of it in like 5 minutes. So my apologies, Katie.
Were you, aside from obviously being helpful to the band by having to do those things, were those learning those things where you're like, what the fuck am I doing, man? I want to go mix. I don't want to deal with this bullshit. Or is it kind of like, hey, this is awesome. This is going to help my overall touring experience down the road, my career.
I guess initially the reason I took it on was like, well, no one's really doing this in this organization. Not to fault them at all. Yeah. They just didn't have they were all having to play the show every night. So it's like, if I take care of this information, then I will have all the things I need when I show up. Right. Which is, when they didn't have to worry about, they would just show up and use whatever sound stuff. It didn't matter what gear was in house. And, because I was touring with nothing, using all house stuff, I was like, I really need to know this. So it was more of like, if I do this, I will help myself immensely. And then it was also one of those things I kind of started thinking about, if I can mix, that's one thing, but somebody told me a long time, like you can train a monkey to mix. It's like, it's not really that hard. And that's a joke, front house guys don't do anything. I always joke, all I do is push faders. I don't really do that much. So I was like, I should really learn more about what's happening in the whole situation.
Right. The business end.
Yeah. So very useful information. Very glad I don't have to do it anymore.
Sure. Well, and also I can imagine as Pigeons grow,
Mhm.
You know, whether you stay in that organization or you move on to something bigger or whatever it is, you will have the tools to be able to communicate with your TM or your PM down the road as things get bigger.
Oh, absolutely.
What your needs are, and you'll have a larger understanding of the industry and how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really useful because I had done it for a while and kind of, I did what I would consider minimal TMing. I wasn't booking hotels and doing all that kind of like booking flights and all that kind of stuff that a TM normally does. But when we brought somebody on, I was able to kind of be like, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is a good baseline for you. And he could just kind of jump in, take over that stuff, and then start compounding. So it was a pretty seamless transition.
Nice.
So
that's awesome, man. And what console, what's your gear out there? So you're probably not even traveling with stuff right now, huh?
I only carry microphones. So I'm using house consoles everywhere.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having a console, but it's been talked about in the organization. Like the lighting guy, we have a lighting rig that we travel with, and he has his own console and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like lighting is a little more specific in that sense.
Eric,
it's very customizable.
Are you jealous?
No, because I
come on. He's got a nice big board. You don't.
I enjoy the convenience that he gets to enjoy. However, because I've been forced into the situation of using house stuff, I'm pretty confident that there aren't any consoles I haven't used yet.
Yeah.
And there's not a console I don't have a file for, or at least have mixed a couple shows on. So it's kind of like that double-edged sword, It would have been nice to have it all along, but because I didn't, I kind of was forced to learn all these, and because of it, I get to use nicer stuff now. Had we bought a console a couple of years ago, we would have bought something in our budget, and now we're playing venues that have much larger budgets. So I get much better gear.
You like that challenge, showing up and here's what I got tonight.
PA of the day. It's my favorite game. So
right.
Yeah, I can't complain. I think a lot of people don't like it, and I've kind of learned to love it. So, and I forced my monitor guy to do the same. We talked about getting a console when we brought him on, just to take care of his little world and make it easier. But he's a buddy of mine, and I've taught him a lot of stuff, and I don't mind like kicking his butt a little bit to learn some more stuff.
Yeah. What console did you get him?
We didn't get him one. I
thought you said you did get him one.
We were going to, and we kind of decided we're going to teach him to use all of them. So we have a lot of fly dates this summer, so he's not going to be able to bring a console regardless. So we were like, you're going to learn these now, and then you're not going to have to worry about it later.
Right.
So
that's awesome. And what's his level of experience?
He is maybe like 2 years out of college.
Wow.
He kind of went through the same program I did in school, and he was a little younger than me. But I've had him work on festivals with me and, kind of tag along. He was our merch seller for a long time, with the band, and, he kind of like worked his way up the ranks and kind of made it. So
nice.
But yeah, he knows what he's doing. So he's definitely young, and, it's fun to get to, pick on him a little bit at every show, every time he like forgets to not tape down a line or like plugs in the wrong thing. So
yeah,
it's good. So.
All right, so let's go back, dude. South Philly boy.
Yeah, currently, yeah.
Currently.
I guess decade deep now at this point.
All right, when you're home.
Yeah.
But you grew up in Philadelphia, right?
I grew up in Central PA, so kind of the York area, kind of close to Gettysburg.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So,
and started playing trumpet at a young age.
Yes, indeed.
That was the gateway.
Yeah. Well, piano a little bit before that. But that kind of led into the trumpet. So I think.
Musical family, or was it just, hey, we got the kid, we got to give the kid a musical instrument, let's get him on lessons? I
would say a pretty musical family. No one like played professionally or anything like that, but my mom played piano, and she got the piano as a kid because I think she wanted me to learn, but she also missed playing. So, when I started taking lessons, she started taking lessons again, kind of thing. I have some cousins that play music, some singers and drummers and dancers and stuff like that. So,
what do your folks do?
My mom is a medical transcriptionist.
Okay.
And my dad works at Home Depot. Wait, is it Lowe's, Home Depot? I forget. He was in the print business for a long time, and as you know, print is no longer a thing. So, I think he's riding his last couple of years out. And
does he wear orange or blue?
To be honest, I've never seen him at work. So, and it's a more recent situation. So
Okay.
I feel like it's probably Lowe's.
Okay.
So,
All right. And were they excited by your musical aspirations, or was it like, we'd really like a doctor?
no, they were pretty cool. They were very encouraging. So,
Nice.
yeah, I think probably in like high school, I started focusing on music a lot. And I kind of knew that was what I wanted to try and do, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
But they were very supportive of it. They, you know, most parents, if you say, I want to go to like music school, like, what do you, like, I don't know, that sounds like a bad idea. So they were into it.
Cool, man.
Yeah, they wanted me to have some sort of backup plan though.
Sure.
So when I started school, I had a minor in like teaching or something that you had to like do a bunch of classes. It was like a 5-year master's. And I lasted, I think, 6 months in that minor before switching to tech minor, which was like a newly introduced thing, which kind of ended me in this current situation.
Yeah, nice. Do you miss playing regularly? 'Cause you were in a few bands, right? You were like,
yeah, I would. Yeah, in college I played a lot. Out of college, I guess my first couple tours were, actual tours were playing. So I did some stuff down to. Down to the Carolinas, and we did South by one year. And so got a couple of loops in doing that. But I still play pretty often.
yeah.
I guess when I'm home, it's just, I understood the economics involved. And because of that, it doesn't bum me out as much, I think, as it could.
Right. Well,
So-
you're also still in it, and you're in it
Oh, yeah.
in a great way. You're
Yeah, very much
hands
so.
on, pardon the pun there, but you are hands on, still in it. It's not like you're doing something completely different and, like,
Yeah,
shit, I
absolutely.
missed out. But it's interesting you said the economics of it, because some folks I talked to as well are like, oh, I realized I'm not going to be, that guy, that girl, right? Talent wise. And so I better find something else.
Yeah. And I saw the opportunities, all of my teachers in college, they played in theaters or they played in, orchestras or wedding. And it's just, as much as I appreciate that stuff and I enjoy playing that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily my bag.
Yeah.
So, that being said, those were how professionals were making money playing trumpet. And, I wasn't necessarily attached to having a church gig every Sunday.
Yep.
So, I was like, I don't know, maybe trying to just play trumpet is a little tough one. So.
And you went to school, you majored in jazz trumpet, right?
Correct.
So growing up, or, in those few years there, who were the jazz trumpeters that you were looking to?
Oh, Miles for sure.
Yeah.
So
he's the top.
yeah, absolutely. I've probably listened to every Miles record over and over again.
Yeah.
I think I even did a week one summer where I just had Bitches Brew on loop, just trying to figure out why this was happening. So
Right.
I think I had a trumpet teacher give it to me. He's like, you might not like this. It's really weird. And then I just proceeded to just put it on repeat until I understood why it wasn't weird. So.
And why? What'd you come up with?
It's weird. That's it. And I love it.
It's just
I absolutely
weird.
love it.
Yeah. Why do you like
there's
him? Why him?
Well, he, somebody told me this, and I think it's very true. It wasn't that he was a great trumpet player, is he was an amazing band leader. And not to say he wasn't an amazing trumpet player, because he was. Technically, he was incredibly proficient. But he was able to put together groups of people that were just unprecedented. You can't, his favorite like quartets and quintets, like they're the best players of all time. And, he was always playing the newest. He was just inventing music as he was playing. It was just so, you look at the timeline and he was always at the top. So whether or not that was him stealing it from somebody else, or if it was actually, whatever, but he just pushed through and, as he liked to call everyone, including himself, he was a motherfucker. So he just, he did it. So there are some other ones, Art Farmer, great. So Nat Adderley, another great one.
Yep.
I'm trying to think I got stuck in the jazz thing for a really long time. And before I even would like listen to other music, But there's some other great trumpet players that aren't necessarily jazz guys.
Yep.
The trumpet player in Beck's band is incredible. And, that's a whole different style of playing where just like playing the part and like fitting in where it needs to. So, I guess one of the bands in the scene is Lettuce. I'm sure. And I think Eric Benny Bloom is probably one of the best trumpet players out there. I just, he sounds a lot like Miles, so which is probably why I enjoy him.
Yeah.
So, but anyone that can kind of has that like that control, and just, you can tell that everything they're playing is on purpose.
Right.
So I appreciate intention behind playing. So. And that's something I always got from those players. So
nice, man. So tell me also about, when you got out of school and started working in clubs. I know the Blockley was one, right?
Oh yeah. That was my first, in my opinion, like actual club. And that was, I got that one through, or I guess I got a job at a production company right out of school,
right?
Which is just people told me I had no idea what to do. I was like, well, I'm not, trying to do the trumpet thing. I had been working in the school studio, so I was like, I'm trying to do kind of, more of that side, like do the sound stuff.
Yep.
Someone said, look around production companies, get a job. So I got one like 2 weeks before I graduated. I got a job, and I think I skipped a couple of finals because I had my first couple of days of work. My funniest one was I had a music business course, and the teacher gave me a hard time for skipping my final. I was like, but business wise, I think I made a great decision here. Like I took the gig. Right. So, but anyway, so I had a friend that was working at that company who had left, and he knew some people over at the Blockley, and I did some random gig for him where I filled in, and in exchange for filling in for him, he gave me the hookup at the Blockley. So he knew they were looking for somebody. He couldn't take the gig, and I helped him with another one. So he kind of gave me that one.
Wow.
And
that dude changed your life.
He definitely helped. So, and at the time, I really didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. I'd done monitors a good amount at that point, but I'd never done sound in a band, like, or front of house at a club. And luckily, the first time they called me to do a gig, it was for a monitor gig. So I was like, oh yeah, totally, like no problem.
Yep.
Went in, it went well, and they started calling me for all like the crappy like Tuesday nights that like nobody else wanted to do.
Yep.
So usually it was like DJ nights or like local bands and stuff like that. But they kept calling me, and I just kept pretending I knew what I was doing. And eventually I didn't pretend anymore. So it was, and it was good. It was an old analog setup. It was like it was a weird room, but it was as far as like the Philly jam scene went, that was like the spot everybody went through.
Is there a Philly jam scene?
Yeah, it's a pretty solid one. I would say, I guess when the Blockley closed, a bunch of the people that worked there, the sound guys and some of the bartenders and managers went and they opened a new spot called Ardmore Music Hall, which is kind of like, I guess, become the jam hub in the area. Like I know like P-Funk plays there, and anytime most, Carl Denson goes and plays through there and all that kind of stuff. So that's become like the new hub, at least for, that size club. But they kind of like cultivate that scene. And, when the Blockley closed and they opened that spot up, they kind of brought me along, and I just kind of became a part of that.
That's awesome, man. And as you started doing that more and more, so then you left your gig behind at the production company? Yeah,
I left that gig. I actually left that gig to go on tour playing. My last tour that I did, like a long tour I did playing, I basically gave them my 2 weeks and said that, I was like, hey, I'm going to leave on this tour in 2 weeks. I'm not coming back afterwards. And they didn't give me too hard of a time. They kind of understood.
Yep.
And I've done work for them since. So I kind of moved to like a freelance position with them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then at that point I was like, well, I got these other club calls. I'm going to keep taking these, and I can't be working full time and trying to take stuff. So just kind of made the jump.
Yeah. So. Who were some of as people came through Philly and you were listening and watching, and I mean, I imagine you were hanging out still when you weren't working.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Seeing bands and whatnot. Were there other engineers coming through that you were, again, sort of grabbing and being like, hey man, what are you doing there? How do I do that? Seeking help.
Two of the guys that really helped me were the guys that were at the Blockley and then ended up at the Ardmore. They kind of run it now, sound wise. Are Jesse Sofer and Julian Booker. Those two guys have helped me probably more than almost anybody at this point.
Yeah.
But they had done a lot of, or I guess Jesse in particular had done some touring, and they were doing stuff with Marco Benevento. They're like the two of them kind of like tag team his tours at this point. But they were the ones kind of doing it, and they were kind of doing smaller van tours or like little runs. And I was like, oh man, that's cool. I mean, I just keep hanging out with these guys, like maybe something will come along. And they kind of hooked me up with Pigeons. So, Pigeons came through Ardmore once, and I happened to be the guy on call that day. It went well. So the next 2 times they came through, they were like, oh, Pigeons come back through, Eric. You want to do that gig again? So I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then the last one was when they kind of were like, all right, so what are you doing for like the rest of the foreseeable future? Yeah, seems that way at this point.
Yeah, I bet, man.
Yeah, but they definitely helped me a lot, man.
So those guys approach you to do Pigeons full time, or did Pigeons come to you personally and be like, hey, listen, man?
Pigeons did, but those two guys were kind of put me in the situation where I was interacting with them. So they would, they were putting me on nights at Ardmore where, they, knew I could handle a band that was coming through with like some extra production, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think Pigeons was even touring with Lights at that point. So I was at that point at Ardmore, I was, I guess, maybe one of the more on-call guys. I was doing like maybe 1 or 2 shows a week, kind of filling in. So I was there pretty often.
Yeah.
So,
was that enough to sustain you 1 or 2 shows a week, or were you doing a bunch of other shit too?
I was doing pretty much anything I get my hands on. Yeah. So I think I was even working at in the basement of a flower shop, even just a little bit kind of in between, just kind of whatever. My girlfriend, I guess who's now my fiance, was working at a flower shop, and wintertime I needed some. Oh, thanks. But yeah, she was working at a spot, and I needed some pickup work in between club gigs, and just kind of whatever I could get.
Yeah.
So
does she? You asked her to marry you, so I'm assuming she gets it. But does she get it?
She has.
Papa's going to be gone.
She's been around for a while, and she definitely gets it.
Yeah.
I don't know if she still loves it, but she, we're going on 9 years at this point.
Wow.
So I've been pretty much traveling the whole time.
Yeah.
As soon as I got out of school, I started being on the road a little bit, and she's kind of understood. She knows what I'm trying to do, and
sure.
So.
Not to freak her out, man, but things could get different as things grow, right? And you guys are out longer, and the venues get bigger, and all that kind of shit.
At this point, I think the longest I've been out is about 2 months.
Okay.
And that was probably enough for her, but and that was actually before Pigeons. So the longest run Pigeons has done, I think, has been maybe 6 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
So I keep telling her, I was like, everything's been better since I haven't been out as long yet. I was like, the runs keep getting shorter. What are you talking about?
Anyone in Pigeons have a family?
Nope. Everyone's one of the guys or 2 of the guys are married, but nobody has any kids or anything. So
you're fucked. They're gonna go out. They're gonna grab this moment. You're gonna be gone forever.
Oh yeah, they're going after it. That's for sure.
What do you like about the jam band scene?
I think it's pretty laid back, and I can enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'll admittedly say I wasn't necessarily a jam fan when I got in the scene. I wasn't. It was more like a circumstantial situation, just because the nature of the Blockley and the Ardmore, like they were just jam venues. So because that was where I got the job, I just was around those type of bands. And there's a lot of similarities between the jam scene and jazz. So I can enjoy it from that angle.
Yeah.
But it's just the people are all pretty laid back. No one's really like trying too hard, which can be frustrating also at the same time.
Sure.
Because I'm not necessarily the most laid back person.
Yeah.
I like to try and be on top of my stuff when I can.
Right.
But there's a little less pressure, so I can enjoy that about it.
Yeah.
So, and there's a very like family vibe. Not that I'm like necessarily a part of the scene, because I'm more of like but everyone that goes, I see the same people at every show. It's really, really interesting to see that, and watching people travel like around the country to follow a band is such a wild prospect.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but
totally.
it's cool to see that though. Like I wouldn't do it, but it's cool that people have that kind of dedication, that like attachment to it.
Yeah. I think the ethos of that whole thing too, like you said, jazz has it, jam band, and the punk scene has that as well. In terms of the family thing and obviously the DIY aspect to it, and sort of taking care of one another. It's a pretty cool thing. Yeah. Like I said, kind of having grown up with that, and and I was in college in the 90s, so. Yeah, 2 hours from Burlington when Fish was breaking, and Blues Traveler, and
absolutely
the archetypes of that next wave after the Dead and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah, absolutely,
it was amazing to see all that happen, and people start traveling. Obviously, people were traveling for the Dead, and the
absolutely
Brothers and stuff. And
that was the beginning. Oh, that was the beginning, like the post-Dead stuff too.
Yeah, like
around that time, so everyone was kind of looking for that next thing.
Exactly. You had things like the Horde tour and all this kind of thing, which were great. But yeah, the thing that struck me, which I think and I hope is still true today about the scene, when I went to my first Dead show, I remember looking around and I was just shocked by like the cross sections of people.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting variety.
And how accepting of all of the different types of people, because you had punkers and you had older people and younger people and
absolutely
all kinds of people. It wasn't like going to whatever, I don't know whatever example I can use, but so I imagine it's still that way.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. My parents haven't been to that many shows, but the few shows they've been to, my mom always says the same thing. She's like, I just can't believe how nice everyone is. Yeah. It's just I don't know if the last time they were at a show, I guess somebody next to them, they started talking. They were staying at the same hotel and or something along the lines. They were both trying to watch the Penn State game. So the person next to them pulled up the game on the phone in between like sets so they could watch it together. They're like, I just can't believe how, So it is really from that. It's nice that everyone's just so nice.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and again, it's I talked to Peter Shapiro about it, and I bring it up a lot. Vibe.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's a lot. That scene has a particular vibe. All the other scenes have a vibe as well, but the jam world scene definitely creates that friendly
absolutely
thing. If you go to a whatever heavy metal show or something, has a vibe, but it's a different type of thing.
Absolutely.
Right. It's more like gladiators preparing for battle.
Yeah. I know the guys in the band too. And I think this is like a cue from, I guess they're Big Fish fans, and they like to describe it as what they're doing on stage is they're cultivating the vibe. So like by what they're playing and where they're just trying to like influence people's mood, which seems to be working. So
let me ask, how does that translate to you? If it does, do you guys talk about, or do they talk to you about necessarily sonically what they want the experience to be? Or are you just straight capturing what's coming off the stage?
I guess I would say it's a combination. I definitely don't try and interfere too much with what's happening. And I don't want what I'm doing to overshadow what's happening. However, I definitely am there to accentuate what's happening. So I guess, we talk about like, what are the important pieces? Like what needs to be there? Like what is too much, like what is too little, the bass player in particular likes to describe what he's going for is he wants people to be swimming in a sea of bass. So I am tasked to figure out how to have people swimming in a sea of bass, yet still be able to hear everything else, which is an interesting challenge and a fun one at that. So
how do you approach that?
I do a lot of work in the tuning stages to make sure that the system responds how I need it to. There's a very interesting threshold of what is too much bass, and he definitely makes me push it. However, I've come up to, I know when things are right. Like I walk out in the crowd and I can feel the bass up to about my shoulders. And then that's where it stops. And then everything above that is the clarity and the guitars and the vocals. So if it only is going, I know it's a weird way to describe it, but
sense.
I know if that's the feeling, then that's right. So,
yeah.
It goes up to just about below your ears. So, and I know that's what the feeling he's doing. He wants the rafters to shake and rattle, but I am a little bit more conservative than that. So,
how does your monitor guy now deal with that, and how did you deal with that in monitor world?
To be honest, I don't think it's actually been that much of an issue. Because despite I like to say I like to get that swimming bass, but I don't think that I'm like heavy-handed to an obnoxious sense where it actually interferes.
Yeah.
And I've been pushing the guys to get on ears or do in-ear stuff. I have 3 out of 4 at this point, which has been, I started out with 1, and that was the drummer, which is the easiest one to kind of get away with. So then I kind of progressed, and all I have left is the lead guitar player, which it's been, I don't know if that one will ever fall, but getting the lead vocalist off of a wedge solved a lot of issues. We used to spend most of soundcheck trying to make sure that his monitor didn't feedback, but it was loud enough for him to hear. He always took a screaming hot wedge, and if you're just walking in and using the house guy, that is a very difficult thing to achieve. And was a cause of much frustration. So once I got him off of that, it definitely cleared up a lot of those issues.
Yeah.
So
do they like it?
So far they seem to love it.
Yeah.
We didn't go with the wireless route because of budgetary concerns, but I made these like guitar looms where there's like a guitar cable and a headphone cable in one, and then we use these little headphone amplifiers, and it has a really clean result. It's easy on stage, easy to diagnose, no interference, and so works out pretty well.
Nice, man. And so what happens when you're home? What do you do when you're home for a bit? I mean, obviously now you're about to pop off to Vermont, get lost in the snow, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I do try and play as much as I can when I'm home. My friends and I have I guess the band that I used to tour with, we just kind of eventually stopped touring and just took all the gear and put it in one location. And now we have a little recording space in South Philly here. Yeah. Rittenhouse Records.
Cool. Tell me about Rittenhouse Records.
So again, it was basically just the culmination of all of our gear. So, we went from house to house, basement to basement with all of the gear where we would rehearse, and eventually we ended up in an actual space. So now we have, a couple tape machines, a bunch of old microphones, and a bunch of old instruments. So it's in a building called the Bach Building in South Philly, which is a repurposed high school. So it was a technical high school for a while. And actually 2 of the guys that I have the space with graduated from this high school. And then they shut it down, and then somebody, like a young developer, bought it up and turned it into an art space. So there's like hairdressers and all sorts of artisan shops, and there's a couple of bars on the roof, and so it's a cool space to kind of have and we have a bunch of instruments in the basement, so it's a nice little place. I have a 24-hour access to it, so it's just kind of a little haven to kind of retreat to.
That's fantastic.
So
that's so you get to play, get to keep that up, keep that creative part going. That's awesome.
So,
and you were talking about mics before. You don't have your own console out on the road. So what are the mics that you bring with you for those folks taking notes? I have,
at this point, it's almost entirely the Sennheiser E900 series stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like the 906 for the guitar, like classic, like square, mics. And I use pretty much all around all the instruments. The one I'm talking in, I use that mic for overheads. And I don't know why I got stuck on the Sennheiser stuff. I I got a couple of them when I was like first starting out, and I really liked them, so I just kind of dug into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like an attachment to my German heritage or something, but they make some quality stuff.
Yeah, they do.
So,
and on vocals?
Same stuff. The 935. So I've been on those for a while.
Cool, man.
So,
Cool.
Yeah.
So as things are starting to grow and build, what are do you have any personal goals of things that you want to, start tackling in the next few years?
I don't know. I think I'm just going to keep hacking away at it. Just, it's cool. We keep getting in bigger venues, and it's been nice to kind of grow my skill level with the size of the venues. Which is, it's been a nice progression. So just kind of that. Within the last maybe 2 years, people have really turned me on to how to like do efficient system tunings, and really focus on that. And, that's kind of changed my whole approach. So I've, I recently got a smart rig. I don't know if, it's kind of a pretty common thing for guys to have. And, I finally got one after years of pushing it off, and, now I'm just trying to figure out what the hell to do with it.
Right.
So, like, FFT? What does this mean? That kind of stuff. So,
and for folks listening, and I'm sure there are some folks listening, what exactly is a smart rig?
So it's basically, smart is a measurement software. So the whole smart rig is just a measurement microphone. And I have a little 2-channel interface, so I can get signal from both the room and from the console, and I can kind of compare them and look at how they show up on a graph and assess what changes need to be done to a sound system to, make it sound how I want. Mm-hmm. So
cool.
Yeah.
You record all your shows?
We record every one.
Nice.
So record every sound check. And we release almost all of them. So we do a lot of stuff on nugs.net.
Yep.
So yeah, I am tasked with both recording all of it and then doing all of the post-production stuff to then get it posted online.
Answered my question. So when are you finding time for all that? Because how quick is the turnaround to get it up on Nugs?
The fans would like it to be minutes.
Yeah.
And it has become quite a thing. If I have the time, like some off days to do it, I can usually couple days. I can usually get it up. This tour is a little rough, trying to find solid internet in the Southeast or the Midwest, and had enough time to actually do it. We were doing 5-day weeks, so having 2 off days that we fill up with whatever press stuff and all the other kind of random things that they end up in. It's a little harder to find it. So, but yesterday I spent, I think, the majority of the day just kind of hacking through it. I got 6 shows up.
Wow.
So,
and when you're recording, you're just doing a two channel output, whatever stereo output, and that's it.
Yeah, I use a little, I guess one of those Zoom has the built-in room mic kind of situation, and then I take a 2-track from the console. Yeah, and I'll mix them together and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it's mostly just soundboard stuff, which has been. The band was very adamant about that being a priority, pretty much immediately. Mm-hmm. They were already recording all their shows when I met them. So that kind of became one of my, I think sometimes that's more important than the actual show.
Right.
Which is totally fine with me, but it's definitely influenced the way I even mix a show. Because they do, at this point, they're doing a lot of live streams where they'll bring in a video crew, and they've done some stuff with Nugs and some stuff with Relics. And so I'm only just sending my board feed, so I have to be very conscious of what that's going to sound like on the other side.
Right.
So
you don't get into like multi-tracking the recording as well, just a straight feed off the board.
I also do that whenever possible. So again, because we're not traveling with our own gear, it's per venue. If the venue has multi-track capabilities, I travel with like 3 laptops. So whichever one works with the console that day, I just kind of try and capture it when I can.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Pretty much, try and get redundance if possible. So
when you're remixing those shows to put them up on Nugs, are you listening back through the whole thing, or are you just like lining it up, make sure everything sounds good in the first 5-10 minutes and then kicking it out?
I usually take a solid sample of the whole thing. I'll usually listen through sections, I'll try, maybe I will listen to a whole song. they play long sets. So they're doing like usually 2 75-minute sets a night. Yeah, so by the end of that, it's like 2.5 hours of music per show. So just to listen through it once takes up a lot of time.
Sure.
So I'm definitely mostly like looking at the waveforms, looking for odd things that jump out, making sure that there's not strange things happening, and just trying to, making sure it's consistent throughout. So,
yep. Cool,
but
man.
Still time consuming nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, if you're catching up on 5 shows on a day off or something, that's your day off, right?
Yeah. Then of course they all go up, and then the first comments on Facebook were like, well, where are the rest of the shows? I'm like, wow, I only got so much time.
I'm only one man.
Yeah. So, because they average me about like 3 hours per show, like from start to finish. From uploading it to, chopping it and naming it, and most of it ends up being clerical work because it's like metadata and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I have an office job when I'm doing all that stuff.
Of course, believe me, I know, dude.
So
I know it. Oh man, that's awesome. Well, Eric, dude, it sounds like an amazing run. You looking forward to a little snow time?
Oh, absolutely.
You snowboarder or skier?
Snowboarder. So, and usually we do some winter touring. The last couple of years we've gotten through Colorado, and we did Jackson Hole last year, and but this year we kind of skipped the winter snowboard tour. So now I got to kind of create my own.
Yeah, you bring a board out there with you on those winter tours?
I do. Dude, yeah,
nice.
So it's been great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, got a lot of good time in Steamboat too. That's one of their favorite towns, and got some good friends that have taken me to the local spots. So,
what outside of their hometown? What's like the biggest spot that, the biggest reception they get?
I would say their biggest market is probably Boulder, or Boston and Boulder are like their 2 big ones.
Nice.
Or I guess Boulder, Denver, like all of Colorado. It's like the first place they really went to off the East Coast, just because, it's like definitely a jam haven.
Yep.
As far as that's concerned. So,
great.
That one's, it's been very good to us.
Favorite room so far you've mixed?
Ooh. Well, the Cap was definitely a lot of fun. That was, everything about that room is just correct. So, Pete makes sure his stuff's in order. Yep. That was a good one. I really love the Ogden in Denver. That's what I would consider like a real rock club, or what I guess maybe would even affectionately call like a shitty old rock PA. Not that it is any of those things, but there's this style of venue. It's definitely, it's not like they have an old McCulley rig, and it has headroom for days, and just like you're standing in the middle of that room during a packed show, like you can just feel it. Yeah, like that's a fun one.
Nice.
And Red Rocks was definitely up there too. That was so I'm excited to go back there in May. But that was, everyone talks about it, and everything they say is true.
Yep.
So it's for some reason an amazing sounding venue.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Awesome, dude. Erich Miller, man, I thank you much for this.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Likewise.
Squeezing this in before your big trip.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to do it.
You listen to a lot of music in your off time?
Pretty much exclusively, Yeah. I'm not a TV guy, so if there's something happening in the background, it's music or silence when I really need some of it.
Yeah, I bet, man. Doesn't sound like you're getting a lot of it out on the road.
Not too much.
No. Good. All right, dude. Well, listen, I appreciate it. I want to thank you for coming on, and hopefully we'll hook up out there somewhere.
Yeah, man. Maybe levitate. That's right. All right, my man in South Philly, Erich Miller, thank you so much, buddy. I'll see you out there on the road. Guys, stay tuned next week. Episode 126 is right around the corner. You can follow us during the week at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, all as Roadie Free Radio. Check out the website, roadiefreeradio.com. Send me a note because I want to hear from you. That's info@roadiefreeradio.com. And friends, you all be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.